Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In this video I'd like to look at this TS3 cell setup, in fact there were two here, and show how this was what we call a Holy Grail trade setup. In other words, it was a setup where we could manage it as a wave 3 and, as you can see, have a very high profit to initial risk ratio. So let's go through the steps one by one and show how we actually define this. First of all, you'll see that the STF is blue. We have standard traders who come into MTPredictor to start with, who use the STF color to give you a guide of the larger degree trend direction. However, with Holy Grail trade setups, because they're on the first correction against a new trend, the STF color will always, or our setups will always be against the STF color. That's why in our training webinars that we have for our customers, we always encourage everybody to come into these, so we show you how to move to higher levels where we go beyond standard technical analysis indicators like this that we know are always lagging because they work on past history, to work on the larger time frames and DPs, which are a decision point tool, which are leading. And let's show you how you do this. So this is the 3-minute chart. So first what we do is we always go to the higher time frame. So on 3 and 5 minute charts we go to the 15-minute chart. Now for this we look at our DPs. I just want to put some white space on the right hand side so we can work with this a little bit. So let's go back to before yesterday even began on the DAX, and here you can see that this is where the DAX was early on. We had a pivot swing here, so what we do is we choose prior pivots. We just simply right mouse click over these pivots, choose decision point. This puts a level on our chart. Now this is going to be, because it's above the market, resistance. So I'll just put a little box around this in NinjaTrader. We can do this really easy just by doing a box around it. Now that means that level will stay on the chart as we change time frames. So this is what we have here, and as you can see, this is important to remember, it's in advance. It's on the market, or it's on the chart there before the market even gets there. If we go back to the 3-minute chart and I scroll back, you can see there is exactly the same level again on your chart in advance. So what happens? Well, the market came up to this particular level and then started to back off. Just as a PS, and beside that we had a lovely DP buy here on a black STF, so that was a lovely standard trade, but that's not what I'm looking at in this video. So the idea being is we had this resistance area on our chart in advance. This sets what we call the larger degree trend. In other words, we now have major resistance on a higher time frame. The market then comes down. In Elliott wave terms, the initial move of a major high, which we now know this is called a wave 1. We're then looking for an ABC correction, which is what this is, A, B, C, up into our TS3 automatic sell, and this is then defined, this high here is defined as a wave 2, because an ABC correction unfolds most of the time in a wave 2. After a wave 2, we're then anticipating a strong wave 3 type decline. And that's the key to this. The key is that because we've identified this setup as a wave 2, we're then looking for a strong move down. I just want to tackle this losing trade here first. If I put the analysis on, you can see that this was actually filled and then was stopped out. So this would have been a -1R loss. That's what we have, these history triangles on our charts, to be able to follow our losing trades as well. But let's now put the analysis on this swing high here. You can see this gave us our position sizing here, which varies our number of contracts based on a constant 2% risk of a €20,000 account, sample account that is. You can vary that depending on your account size and your risk profile. Our initial target was down here at the minimum wave C WPT, but as I've already said, we're looking for the typical wave 3 WPT because we're anticipating this is going to be a wave 3 decline. So let's now adjust the risk reward profile to come down to here to our typical wave 3 WPT. Now the reason we do that is, first, we know this is a major high because this was at our 15-minute DP resistance. They're set in advance. We then know this is a wave 1 because it's the initial decline. We know the initial correction unfolded as an ABC. Therefore this will be treated as wave 2. Therefore we're looking for the typical wave 3 WPT. Let's scroll forward. The market carries on going down, just almost tags that level at that point there. The market does actually go down to new lows as well. which I covered in our training webinar yesterday. And in fact, actually in real time, when we were looking at this didn't quite fill this particular trade. So you were able to run this a little bit further. But let's just take this as a worst case scenario, and let's assume that you were filled to the tick at that low there, which is fine. But can you see how suddenly you had a trade where the profit was 10 times the initial risk? This is what our position sizing does, and our Holy Grail trade setup does. It allows you to have trades where you're in a swing, which is a wave 3. Wave 3s are typically the strongest and longest waves in any completed 5-wave sequence. So therefore the best trade that I know of is to get in right at the start of the wave 2, which we did here. I mean, we got in right at that very bar there that ended the wave 2. We then come out down here at what we anticipate will be the typical wave 3 WPT. Our position sizing then keeps our risk small and under control. Remember, on this first trade here we lost -1R, but can you see how a -1R loss is extremely small compared to a plus 10R profit? Yes, this plus 10R means you'd have had a profit of approximately 3,900 euros, all for a 375 euro risk. And this is why this Holy Grail trade setup is so good, because it has profits that are much, much larger than the initial risks. But you all see how we set this up in advance. We set it up in advance by having this 15-minute decision point on our chart in advance. So we knew that this was an area where the market was likely to make resistance, and that's exactly what it did. We then ready for this initial correction, initial decline. We were then ready for this initial correction, ready to take our TS3 sells. -1R loss to start with, kept small and under control, but then the market did us proud by turning right at our automatic TS3 setup, and went down right into the typical wave 3 WPT. If you wanted to, because the STF was strong at this stage, you could have used your ATR stop, which is our red dots here, and actually trailed that for a little bit further. So you could have actually come out at, oops, sorry, I'll just put that back on again. So I missed on my mouse. Wrist toward. You could have come out down here with the ATR stop, which would have been an 11R profit. But either way, whether you'd have come out at the level here, market if touched, or whether you'd come out using the ATR stop, the profit would have been very, very large in relation to the initial risk. And that is the whole essence of the Holy Grail trade setup, because it gets you in right at a wave 2 to then capture the strong wave 3 that's then likely to unfold. And as you can see, this was an absolutely brilliant example of this on the 3-minute DAX that unfolded yesterday, that we covered in detail in our MTPredictor training webinar yesterday. And this particular trade setup, for all you guys who'd like to know, was the reason that I designed MTPredictor in the first place, to be able to find the end of these wave 2s, to then be able to capture trades where you had the ability to trade the full length of the wave 3, and as such have trades where the profit was much, much, much larger than the initial risk. And that's the key to successful trading, having a trade set up that has profits that are much larger than initial risks. And that is what the Holy Grail trade setup is designed to do in MTPredictor.